Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, May 24th. We are here live. It is time for a free-for-all. It's also trucking technology and efficiency. Alec is joining me. I think we are still waiting to hear from Joel, and we're not sure about Henry today either. Right now, it looks like I'm on my own. I've got a couple things I want to talk about. We'll get to your calls and questions. I'll bring the team in as they show up this morning, so jump in and join us. I've been holding some of these stories for today. Been reading them all week. It looks like Alex coming in right now. The ACT Expo is going on out in Las Vegas. I wish this was a different time of year. I would really like to attend this one. This year, again, though, it is all about electric. Well, not necessarily just electric either, about a lot of alternative fuel vehicles, which is one of the issues right now, is that I think there's going to be a lot of confusion on the future of how we're going to power Class 8 trucks. But I haven't seen this much activity around both electric and autonomous since whatever year that was, 2018 or 19. We were really talking about it a lot. So it's back. I think I've got Alex, so let me bring him in here. Alec, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good. You get a gold star today. You're the only one that showed up sort of on time.
Yeah, well, sort of is right. And I'll take the blame for Joel being conspicuously absent.
Are you working him today?
He's had one hell of a rough week.
Has he really?
I am, and oh my God, it's
just a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm not
going
to go down the road, but
okay.
Well, a lot of work and a lot of, things, equipment failures, pulling company equipment. Sometimes that happens. And, it is trucking, so I'm not going to cry over it. It happens to everybody, but it just sucks when it happens multiple times.
Yes.
You just thank God Travis is doing a great job, and I don't have to ever worry about him. That's all I can say. He sets a good example for Joel to follow.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe we need to get Travis on the show. Or maybe not. He's the one out there really getting things done, so we should probably leave him alone.
He really is.
Right.
Yeah. And he gets 11.7 or whatever miles to the gallon.
I know.
I mean, he's just
he's a rock star.
What a producer.
Yeah.
I mean, he really does.
I know.
The other day I told him he had to haul, you know what, and put the hammer down. He took it up to 62.
I bet he was white knuckling it the whole day.
He was still getting almost 12 miles to the gallon.
That's crazy.
I mean, he's just a rock star. He really is.
He is. That is awesome. Hey, I've been holding a bunch of articles. Hey, Joel's probably not going to show up, right?
He may cut in. There was an accident on 65 in Indiana heading north, and so he was going to try to muscle his way around it and get creative to get to his delivery in Chicago. So
okay,
I expect he may be in and out, perhaps.
Yeah, we haven't heard from Henry today, so we'll just go ahead and get started. I wish this conference was at a different time of year because I have way too much going on here in the springtime. But the ACT Expo in Vegas, I've been following it. Boy, is it all about alternative fuels this time. Everybody's jumping on board with that. Here's what I think the biggest problem is going to turn into: too many options. You know, we've used internal combustion engines burning diesel fuel for 100 years. And now we're going to change, but we've got battery electric, we've got hybrid electric, we've got hydrogen electric, we've got natural gas. What else do we have in there? Hydrogen fuel cell, I guess that's the hydrogen electric. It seems like there may have even been something else in there. The problem with all these...
Well, we still have diesel.
Right, and we still have diesel. The problem with all these is all of them, with the exception of maybe the plug-in hybrid, which we're not seeing too many of those, I'm not sure why not, is that they all need some sort of fueling network built out. That's a big, big job. And
you know that.
How do we do it for all these different options?
Well, that's a very good question. That's not the problem I thought you were going to mention, so I'll just save it until you do. You know, it took a lot. It took because there are a number of them, right?
Well, right. Yeah. Where do you start? But this one seems like a big one to me. That is a huge.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about in the past when we get competing new technologies. So we're going to lose a whole bunch of the audience here. Beta versus VHS, right? You had to pick. We weren't going to have two of them, but for a while we did have two of them. And then one just completely disappeared. DVD and there was some other, and it wasn't Blu-ray, there was some other technology that wouldn't play on a DVD player. Blu-rays would. It was pretty easy conversion. But there was another technology, video disc, or I don't even remember what it was. It actually looked like a CD, but it was halfway between the size of a CD and an old vinyl album. And it had its own player, and
I don't remember that.
The technology was actually much better, but it didn't make it. And it wasn't even around long.
Yeah.
So we've had lots of examples of this when there's only going to be one technology to make it through, because it just doesn't make sense to have multiples in cases like this. So it just seems odd that we're full steam ahead on all these different technologies that need big networks. And then what happens? You build out a network and your technology loses.
Well, and that's a very expensive bet. I mean, just look at, oil production. I mean, that by itself, without a concrete direction, in governmental policy, every 4 years we change, policy direction, so it seems. And we're not going to be able to produce enough petroleum products with all of that uncertainty. You're not going to make the investments.
Right.
And that's with what we already have, and is already built out. Now take that, just as you described, and you apply that to half a dozen different technologies that is not built out.
Yeah.
Who is going to decide? Who is going to invest the billions of dollars on a whim and a prayer? Not too many.
The sad part is,
to do that.
You know who is investing all that money? You and I.
Warren Buffett.
No, you and I.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah.
That's my biggest problem.
Yes.
Of all of this.
Yeah.
Get the government money out of it completely. Mm-hmm. In fact, if there wasn't government money, I bet we wouldn't have all these options.
I agree with that completely. And, in some ways, you can say, well, okay, it warrants a little bit of input from the government, perhaps. But here's where I think you and I are aligned is I don't want the government picking winners and losers and throwing down this Green New Deal type of deal down our throats.
Here's something else I don't want.
Excuse me, I don't mean to insult, but they don't know what the hell they're doing in the first place. So who are they to decide who's going to win or lose?
Exactly.
It's arbitrary and expensive
and
inefficient.
Here's something else I often wonder. And we could throw Tesla into this, and I'm a big fan of Elon, but Elon should have never gotten all the government money he got, and maybe we wouldn't be as far advanced. But I don't care; it's just not right. Here's part of the problem: they use our money to gamble with. How many of these companies have just gone out of business? The whole solar thing. For a while there, they were using so much of our money, Solana and all the others, and now they're just gone, and the money's gone. Mm-hmm. Well, that's bad. But you know what's almost worse? Why don't those companies, when they do succeed and make $1 gazillion, why don't they have to pay that back?
That's a good question. That's what the auto companies had to do when they got bailed out.
Right. But they don't call this a bailout. This is, progress or whatever. Fine. I'd rather you not do it. The free market should just figure out who's going to be the winners here. But if you're going to use our money, somebody is going to win. And when they win, they're going to win big. They will become one of the biggest companies in the world, just like the oil companies are now. Whatever energy source replaces oil, those will be some of the biggest companies in the world. And when they win, why don't they have to pay this back to us?
Absolutely. Right.
But they don't.
Fair question. But I would also say that what we have now is also unfair with petroleum because the U.S. military has to support the shipping lanes to keep the oil flowing.
Yeah.
So we already, through our taxes, as you point out, we subsidize the oil industry. The oil industry doesn't pay that back either.
Ever.
So we have a pretty messed up system. Now, the rest of the world, they pay the fully absorbed cost to bring that oil in. So it's embedded in the cost of their fuel. And when you do that and take out that military subsidization, these alternate energies are probably more based on the market value, and they don't have to have this false impetus of subsidization, to support solar development or, some of these other hybrid type things. I mean, these are worthy of research and development. So I'm okay with spending some money to develop these alternative technologies. It's good for the planet. It's good to have multiple things. But the government should not be the one that's picking the winners and losers. That's where I draw the line.
Yep, I agree.
Let the market sort it out.
I agree. All right, everybody. Phone lines are open. We've got tons to talk about, but you should jump in and join us. 855-950-3835 or hit that call now button on your app. Alec, did you see Kenworth's Super Truck 2?
I did.
Isn't
pretty
that
sharp
thing
looking.
Wild? Like they went.
It's pretty sharp, but I don't think it's practical.
I was going to cover that too.
I mean, how do you check your tires? But in all fairness, look, it was very sharp. It's futuristic. It's aerodynamic. I mean, it's got a lot of the things. They punched a lot of the right buttons. I think
they did.
Hey,
what if we took
it reminded me of the Shell truck.
What if we took this approach, though? We all realize that you can't make radical changes in efficiency and get it right the first time. There's development, there's testing, which is what these concept trucks are all about. We have talked about the idea of battery electric. There are real opportunities, even today with the short ranges, for battery electric to fit in, but it's going to be very specialized. It's going to be point A to point B, back and forth kind of stuff, charging at both ends. But you could build a case that we could take a Tesla truck, or I'm actually going to talk about a new electric truck on the market, and there are situations where it might work really well. And we've talked about that. Okay, throw it in there. We'll get a lot of testing. We'll learn a lot of things. You could do the same thing with one of these concept trucks. Granted, you're not going to get into most docks around the country with this thing, but there are places where you don't ever get into a dock anyway. You go from parking lot to parking lot somewhere. And these kind of trucks could be put into service in something like that, and we would learn a lot. I mean, this is a crazy wild truck.
Yep.
This is one of those, I mean, this reminds me of, watching the Jetsons when I was a kid. This one is really futuristic. If you think the Tesla looks weird, wait till you see this thing.
Yeah. You ain't seen nothing yet.
It is.
Yeah.
It's actually very cool looking. Like, you know what it looks like? To me, it looks like the front of a bullet train.
Yes, the European bullet trains.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what it looks like. And you can't see any tires. So for all you know, this thing's a hovercraft. They have an opinion too,
it was pretty amazing looking. I would have, I'm close enough. My alarm system's going off here.
Yeah.
I should have, frankly, although we've been just buried. We've kind of become, like you, Kevin, where you have so many projects and too little time, and we're brainstorming stuff all the time, and we're running out of time capacity to get these things to fruition. But that truck, I would have loved to have gone to Vegas and kick the tires.
You can't kick the tires.
But you really can't.
No.
But it reminded me a little bit of, remember that Walmart truck that they had? I can't remember. They had the 4-letter type thing.
Yeah, I do.
This was on that level.
Right. This one's out there.
Actually, on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I also liked some of the specs. We don't get it. I wish we could get more details. That's why I wish I could have gone to this. Just a bad time of year for me. Fuel efficiency, they're just a hair under 13. They don't really tell us a lot about how the testing was done to get to that number. But it's got to be impressive fuel mileage. I mean, it just has to. If nothing else, just the aerodynamics alone.
Yeah. But here's the funny thing. The Shell Super Truck that they came out with some years ago, I mean, it looked really futuristic. And unfortunately,
Didn't
they
do
picked
that great.
a second-tier powertrain.
Yeah, they did.
And they got 8.5.
Right. I know. That was so disappointing. They did better last time, and that truck's
I would be
back
surprised
out on the road, version 3.0 now.
Yes.
They're using natural gas.
They ditched the original powertrain and I think they ditched the original developer.
I know that guy. Well, I don't know him. I spoke on a panel with him one time. Absolutely brilliant guy. Which I'd love to get him on this show with us. The guy was building 7.5 mile per gallon cab overs in the 70s. He's been at this a long, long time. Yeah. The issue, and I'll just say it, he has no people skills. And it seems like he's either always fighting with somebody or he retreats and you don't hear from him for years or something. But just absolutely brilliant guy and a nice guy when you're just talking to him one-on-one. But several things have gone wrong over the years, but the guy's a genius. This one's pretty interesting. I've often wondered why this hasn't been done sooner, and I know it's really complicated, but they figured out a way. They used an MX-11 on this. This is a PACCAR MX-11 engine, 440 horsepower. They do have their own, they're calling it a TX12 automated transmission. I don't know anything about that. 48-volt electric generator. They're calling it a mild hybrid. They we've talked about this before, and it's been tried before. Maybe the new generation electrics will make this work. They took all of the accessories off the engine and they run them by electric. So electric fans, electric steering, power for electric coolant and the AC pumps, all of that is pulled off the engine and run through the electrical system instead. And there's always been talk that would be more efficient, but it never seems to work out. They're trying it again. But with the MX-11, they were able to drop the engine inside the frame rails and lower it so much. That's how they're able to get that aerodynamic shape.
So that's how they got the cab essentially sitting on top of the engine.
Right. The engine is much
and I didn't get to look at it very closely.
Yeah, it's in the frame. Yeah. It's between the frame rails. Now you start thinking, I hope I don't have to work on that one. I can't imagine what it might be.
Yeah, it's probably a cab over tilt and everything else. But
yeah.
So but when you say between the frame rails, they probably have the frame rails splayed at the front.
Yeah,
because a lot of the engines now, at least on the Volvo, kind of sit down as well.
Right.
Especially for safety, if in the event that there is a collision, the engine just drops. Plus, the driver is not going to be crushed by the engine in a frontal impact. So there are a lot of good things about that, and you can lower the slope of the hood and increase the aerodynamics.
They even actually used that term.
What I find
they called it a reverse splayed chassis.
Huh. Interesting.
I know. And I think that's what allowed them to move the engine back and down. And then they're able to slope the hood more and narrow the hood as well.
Actually, that's quite smart.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Now,
that's very clever.
Hey, look at this. Wait a minute. Look at this. A variable suspension system was developed to customize ride height and optimize aerodynamics. The truck can be raised over rough roads to avoid obstacles, then brought back down when running over smoother interstates.
Well, wait a minute. There's no such thing as a smooth interstate.
Well, that's true, too. So I guess we're just going to have to leave it up at its highest ride height all day long. Now, here's one that I really... This was interesting. They also built a trailer to go with this, which I'd love to see that we're finally starting to talk about, special combinations. That's where I think we're really going to see some big fuel mileage gains. When we start customizing tractor to trailer, now I realize in our industry that only works in very limited cases. I get that. But there are absolute cases out there where you would never have to disconnect, or you could have a pool of trailers that match this pool of trucks. I mean, that can all be done. We have so many different things in our industry. But listen to this.
Yeah.
The tractor and trailer, 26,100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. That's big.
Boy, that's taken 20% off.
Yeah. 26,100 pounds. What does that leave us for payload?
64?
64,000.
54.
Well, you'd think we'd be better at math than this. Yeah, 54, which is a lot of payload.
But that's a lot more than we've got now. Is an extra 10,000 pounds?
Yeah.
Close to it.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Really, there was some pretty interesting stuff in here, and I'm glad we got some of those numbers. This one, they must be talking about all of the tires. It says new concept tires weighed 355 pounds less. That must be all the tires on tractor and trailer. And they also claim they're giving us...
That's interesting.
They're giving us a weird reading on rolling resistance that I've never even seen before, but they are calling it extremely low rolling resistance, measuring 4.2 on the CRR scale versus 5.0 for a typical high-efficiency tire. So they're claiming big efficiency gains over the most efficient tires we already have. Pretty interesting stuff.
Here's a funny thing. If you take Purple Haze, and this is where my metric, if you take Purple Haze, call it 10.5 on a conservative, although Travis is inching at 11 now.
I know.
For the lifetime average, bringing it up. Now that we're in summer season, so it's really going to come up quite a bit. And Volvo says the new generation Volvo is going to be up to 10%. Okay.
I know.
Let's just say 10.5. You're going to add 1.5 to that. So now that we're at 12, Joel did the test. I did the data analytics. I found another 1 mile per gallon.
Really?
And I can't go into the why and the where.
Okay.
But that's going to put us at 13. So if we're at 13 and they're struggling to get to 13, and we're a production truck
on the road, what I'm wondering,
the money.
this has been going on since they started the whole super truck project. Excuse me. Every time they bring out a new super truck and talk about it, we look at the numbers and go, wait a minute, we're doing that in the real world. I've always been confused about that. You guys spent $80 million on this truck, and it's not that impressive. Now, some of your technology looks very impressive, but where's the real results here? You look at this truck, and I think it should get 16 miles to the gallon.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're pulling company equipment.
Right.
I'd love to we have to haul freight like everybody else. So in the current market conditions, for us to have a dedicated trailer does not really comport with what we're doing. But I'd love to get the Windine extended side skirt, custom trailer, lift axle, the eyebrows, we can't really use a nose cone anymore. It's because we're much better equipped, but proper aerodynamics. There's another 1 to 1.5 miles per gallon on top of that.
Yeah, sometimes the numbers just don't make sense to me.
You got to worry about where's the return on the investment. I get that you have to do this to develop. Like I'll use Volvo as an example. The turbo compound unit was not the current super truck, but the one before that.
Right,
and so it did enable them to do some development and so on. And so there was a benefit that we are now realizing today. That's the whole idea of the super truck program.
And concept vehicles.
But when people talk about getting,
it just doesn't seem like it's enough.
It pushes the envelope. Sure.
Right. Here's something else we don't always talk about. We've been doing this fuel mileage game for a long time. So when you talk about the fact that the average truck on the road is still 6.6, if you can get to 8.6, you get 2 extra miles per gallon. Savings are huge. The problem we are facing now, and we don't talk about it enough, is let's say that you guys are at 11, because we're really, really close. Let's just say you're doing 11. And they get to 13. That's another 2 mile per gallon increase. But the savings isn't much anymore. It's hard to get your head around this. How could 2 miles per gallon here be less of a return than 2 miles per gallon on that truck? Because it's all percentages. If you've got a car that gets 50 miles to the gallon and you get another car that gets 52, you're talking pennies in savings. There's not much savings to that. It's still the same 2 miles to the gallon. But so we're to the point of diminishing returns on a lot of this stuff, and it's getting harder and harder to cost justify some of this.
Yes. However, when somebody has a truck at 6.6 to 7 in that range, and they could get 10,
that's huge.
I don't know how they justify driving the 7 mile per gallon truck, even if it is older and pre-emission, and the parts are cheap and allegedly,
right.
There comes a point where you have to just park that truck with the keys in it and walk away.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. One of the other articles I was looking at, and this is kind of what I talked about earlier, and this expo kind of points it out. Like I said, I wish I would have been there. It would have been interesting to actually walk around and see all this. But the headline is, Trucking Faces Peak Complexity on Road to a Greener Future. I think that's the biggest challenge we've got here is there's no clear path. There's 5 different competing technologies. All of them are expensive to develop and test. We've got to build out power generation and delivery. And I think we're in for an interesting decade.
I agree with you. And, one of the things that I joke about with my parents who live in California is, look, California can't power its own, residential and commercial loads now.
Yeah.
How can you do a mandate for electric vehicles, without a brownout?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's...
So to your point, not only is there complexity, I was going to say something. I had to check myself. Oh, wait a minute. I'll go ahead and say it.
Okay.
Because I'm with friends here. The idiocy of it.
Yes.
There's no, it's fine to have a plan, and this is my beef with this whole Green New Deal. It sounds great. We're going to create jobs, and everybody gets excited, and they go to the pep rally. But now let's put some meat on the bone. Let's take away the sizzle from the steak, and let's talk about the meat. And when you get down to it, there's, as of the moment, I'm not aware of a practical means of getting there, unless everybody likes to have that nuclear power plant in their backyard. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that would be probably a good solution in my book, but we're not doing it, so that's not going to be the solution. Here's the other thing that I think is going to be really interesting.
We're not going to build coal.
No, we're not. So, well, and the push is to get us into the alternatives, whether we like it or not, whether it's efficient or not, whether it's good for the planet or the economy. None of that matters. They're going to push us to a green future because of all the money that's going to be made doing it. That's the real driver of all this. Nobody cares about the trees. This isn't about trees. This isn't about our air. This isn't about our water quality. This is about how much money is going to be made when you get rid of oil and some new technology. We are going to create an industry that will be as big as oil, and that industry doesn't exist right now. So think about how much money is going to be made in that. And that's really what we're talking about. That's why this whole push is even happening. It's interesting though, it looks like our future, we will be talking about a lot of different truck names too. I mean, I don't think we've ever gone through a shakeup like we're about to go through. I mean, forever we've had Packard trucks, and Volvo's actually fairly new into the American market. It happened during my lifetime. We've lost several brands of trucks over the years, but that we're about to see a lot of that. Honda is building a hydrogen system for Class 8 trucks. And, if Honda's been involved,
good for them.
Yeah, Honda's been involved in hydrogen for decades. I remember reading about Honda's hydrogen car idea when I was a kid in Popular Mechanics. I mean, that's how far back that goes with Honda and hydrogen.
I read the same thing, and you and I are the same age.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, BMW had the 7 Series hydrogen powered back then.
Yes. Now, here's the other confusing thing.
Well, 70s, I guess it was 80s. But yeah.
If we say hydrogen, we're talking about 2 potentially different things. Hydrogen electric, where it's a hydrogen fuel cell, where we use hydrogen to produce electricity and then use electric motors. But there is an internal combustion engine that runs on hydrogen, and the only emission is water. Honda's been working on that for.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really what I remember reading a lot about. But that's not what this Honda project is now.
You're right.
It's a hydrogen electric.
Well,
the Honda is.
Right. The problem with the hydrogen being, periodic number 1, it's a very light gas, so it would take the size of a 53-foot, van, or, to have enough fuel to, as a 300-gallon diesel tank. So the practicality of an internal combustion engine that runs on pure hydrogen doesn't exist. So
Right.
that's where the fuel cell takes over, because you
Right.
can store a lot more of that in a fuel cell and peel off the gas to spin a electric generator.
Yeah, which is why it won't be as efficient because of all the conversions of energy. That's part of the problem with a lot of these ideas, like even
Yeah.
battery electric, or not battery, but diesel over electric in a truck, like a hybrid. They've tried it. They've tried it lots of times, and we haven't had a whole lot of success at it. It's not all that efficient, and you're converting energy too many times, and every time you convert energy, you lose energy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and wasn't there something also? You would know this, that there was something about a diesel engine, and I can't remember who developed it. Was it Toyota? That's supposed to be much more efficient.
There have been a couple.
It's been in the last month or so.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen that one then. If there's another one. Now here's one.
It's been in the last, I'll call it 2 months, but yeah, recent.
Okay, then yeah, I'm not aware of that one. Then I may have to go look and see what that one's all about. Imagine someday we might be talking about you buying a. Well, I can tell you how. This year. By the middle of this year, which we're almost at the middle of this year, we should be able to buy a Lion 8 tractor. You ever even heard of that one?
Huh. I did actually.
You? I haven't heard of this one.
And that was also very recent that I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that one. I didn't read it. I saw the headline, and I have to say it's been in the last 2 weeks. Very recent.
Yeah. They're claiming expected to be commercially available mid-2024. Now, I like how they do this. They ignored telling us the weight of the vehicle itself. Here's what they put in, though. And I just, words are important to me. I try to read between the lines. They did this because they don't want to tell us the weight of the truck. So here's what they tell us. The truck available mid-2024 offers the highest gross combination weight rating in the EV truck sector, boasting up to 127,000 pounds. Tell me what the truck weighs, though. Don't tell me it's capable of pulling 127,000 pounds. Great, but what does it weigh? And the electric truck makers just don't want to put that weight out there.
126.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of hard to tell. It's the net that matters, isn't it?
Yeah. And this truck just isn't that impressive. Its range up to 275,000 miles. They're giving us absolute best case scenario. That's pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we even bothering to build a truck and sell it with that kind of range? That's not practical. I said, you could find.
You just answered your own question.
I know. You could find a situation and go, oh, no, look, it can go back and forth from these two terminals. Great. Okay. We need a little more than that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And to your point, like the Kenworth super truck, that concept with its own mated trailer going from terminal to terminal is a fantastic idea. Just like electric hybrid trucks, running around, I call it mini regional, local, whatever, Front Range in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great utility for those sorts of things, but and the infrastructure is going to be a lot easier to install at that point. But long haul trucks, I think, are going to be diesel, at least for the next decade. I mean, these other trucks are nice, but so much investment, both in terms of brain power, money, energy, and then trying to get all the components together to agree on something that also is going to take equally, if not more, time. So I still think diesel is going to reign supreme for the next decade. There'll be inroads with other technologies, and that's where they belong. And I think it's going to be a multifaceted, and just as that article that you read talked about the complexity, I think is absolutely true.
Yeah. You know, it seems to me, and maybe I just try to use too much logic in this, it seems to me when you look at the technologies, look at the potential of those technologies, look at what it's going to take to build out an infrastructure, and then what are the advantages. And when I look at all these different technologies, I keep coming back to pure battery electric. It's simple. Once we get batteries that don't catch on fire so easy, and we'll get there, it becomes much safer. All these other fuels are combustible, and the delivery system is complicated. The fueling process is not simple. The equipment to fuel is expensive. And let's think about this. If we have to build out some sort of energy network to deliver energy to these vehicles, every building in the country already has electric. All we have to do is produce enough electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty simple when you compare it to what we have to do to build out hydrogen. I mean, every building we go to with the truck already has electric at the building. So all you need to do is deliver more electric and put in a charging station. You could be charging at every dock you backed into.
So are you making an argument for the benefits of detention?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Well, at least it'd be a net benefit.
Yeah. So it seems to me when I look at it logically, all of these technologies have issues. They're not ready for prime time. We know that. It's going to take time. You said diesel will be, the primary fuel for a decade, at least a decade, I think. But we are going to advance to some other technology. We will not be using diesel at some point. And I'm going to live long enough to see it. I'm going to live long enough to see the time when diesel becomes minority, not the majority. I'm sure of it. And I think it will end up being just pure electric of some sort. The other interesting thing about this Lion 8 truck, I can't believe this thing's going to be out this year and never even seen it. This is a strange design. It's like a very European cab forward, cab over on this one. Like the steps going up into the truck are in front of the front axle. And you sit ahead of the front axle and pretty low, actually, but it is a cab over.
I don't think I've seen a picture of it.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. And it looks like, and I don't know why it looks like that, but it looks like it's a non-integral sleeper. It's kind of weird looking at there. There's a clear distinction between the cab and the sleeper itself, which seems a little weird. Not sure why. And it could just be that when you think about it, somebody out there is building plants with tooling to build all these new vehicles. These things didn't even exist before. So it's probably cheaper in the beginning.
Well, that's an investment in of itself.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, these things just didn't pop up in somebody's garage. I mean, we're building tooling and creating, whole new vehicles. And it's probably cheaper to build one cab, a day cab, and then you can sell it as a day cab, or here we can slap a sleeper on it for you too. That's cheaper than trying to build out, an integral sleeper and a day cab, which is going to be two different models, really. So it's interesting. Now here's a topic.
Thinking back to what you said.
Go ahead, because I'm going to totally kind of change gears on the next topic here.
All right. Well, just going back to what you said about I was just thinking while you were saying all of that about the electric, and when I think about Europe in terms of electricity and electric infrastructure, Europe is far ahead of where we are in this country.
Yes.
They run higher voltages, and just thinking about the implementation of electric or battery electric, I think that's where you're going to see the inroads first because things are a lot more congested. The infrastructure is much denser. Where the impracticality of an implementation here in the States because of our vast size.
Right.
So I think that's why you'll see it in Europe first. But anyway.
Yeah.
I yield the floor.
Okay. Somebody's. Does Joel have a 704 area code?
No, he does not.
Okay. Maybe Henry does. Somebody, we've got. I've got another line.
I think Henry does.
Oh, look, they've already been screened too. I can bring them in, I think. Have they? Oh. No, Chelsea's got it. She's screening it now. It might be Henry. So I'm going to, here's something else that I keep reading about, when these OEMs are going to roll out electric. I've seen articles about all of this. They have put together these, I'm going to bring Henry in because that is Henry. Henry, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
You're late.
For a little bit, unfortunately. Conference call I got to get on.
Everybody's busy today. What's with that?
I guess opportunity.
I guess so. We're talking about electric trucks and the ACT Expo going on in Vegas, and it's all electric this year, it seems like. But here's one of the things I see, and in a way, it kind of pisses me off. We talk all the time about you've never been able to depend on a dealer to help you spec a truck, right? If you wanted a really efficient truck, there's really no, I'm not going to say none, but it's so rare to find a salesperson or a dealer or anybody that can really help you. You better know what you want. And then they even try to fight you sometimes, right? Oh, why are you ordering that? Oh, no, we can't spec like that. When you do know what you're doing, they want to fight you on it.
Or even worse yet, we need extra money down.
Yeah. Lisa just startled me. She walked up behind me and whistled really loud.
Wow.
All right. So
I think the cow got out.
I know. Here's what I'm reading about these programs now. So all of the OEMs are ramping up major programs to help people transition to electric. So entire teams, it will help you with this, and we've got special financing, and we've got this program, and we'll teach all your technicians how to work on these things. And why didn't you do that with today's current trucks? Because honestly, you all suck at it. But now we're going to spend all this money and do it for electric when it's less than 0.5% of the market. That kind of stuff makes me crazy. Now, here's something. Let's talk about something where I really think when we start talking about electric and autonomous was talked about a lot more here. Here's the other thing going on with autonomous that I'm not sure people know. That technology is being used all over the country. Delivery robots are everywhere. There are, autonomous vehicles now being used as shuttles. And I don't think people realize how much the autonomous technology is already being used. Now, just like electric and all the others, we will still be driving our own vehicles a decade from now, maybe two. But I can also make this claim. Every year from now on, there will be more vehicles on the roads or the sidewalks that don't have a human being in them. There will be more every year. This is not going away. Now, here's where it's all headed. And I've read lots of articles about this, but you got to dig to find these. I don't necessarily see them being reported all that often. If you talk to executives at automakers or truck makers or anybody that makes a vehicle, they are scrambling. And the future for these companies looks very different. And here's what it looks like. Volvo's already announced their program for this. This is what the future of vehicles looks like. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, no way, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen in my lifetime. I'm sure of it. Volvo has announced its truck as a service program, like software as a service. And so what that means is Volvo won't sell its trucks to anybody. When you want a truck, Volvo will send an autonomous truck to do what you need it to do. And it's like a subscription service. Okay. You won't own vehicles. There's even that will the automakers are worried about that because we're already heading in that direction. Tesla has already moving in this direction. We don't have to sell you a car. We'll just sell you a car as a service. When you need a car, one will be there to pick you up, kind of like an Uber, but without a driver. And both Uber and Lyft are working on this kind of technology too. If Uber and Lyft could get rid of the driver, I mean, that is if you think the driver is the problem in trucking, and a lot of people think the driver's the problem, in that world, Lyft and Uber, that is the entire roadblock. The drivers, there's just a lot of issues with that. So they have always had that vision of we are going to use these human beings to build our business and our company, and then we're going to put them out of a job.
Right.
And we're heading that way with trucks. Volvo already announced it.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
That sort of takes
interesting.
Paying for the truck as you use it to another level, doesn't it?
Really does. But think about in reality. I know we hate to hear this. Where's everybody going to work if AI and robots and autonomous vehicles do all the work? That's a big question. And a lot of us don't like this whole idea, but you can't, just because you don't like it, you can't avoid it. It's coming. And if you think about it, it is the most efficient way to use vehicles, isn't it? I mean, how ridiculous is it that we pay $50,000 for a vehicle and it sits in our garage 95% of the time?
Right.
You really don't use your vehicle that much. Even people that commute every day don't use their vehicle that much when you really look at it. Somebody like me who's been working at home for decades, I don't even put 4,000 miles a year on my cars. Well, how stupid is it to even own one? If there was a service where I could just have a car show up when I needed one, and what about this? When I go to buy a car now, then they're really, really expensive. I have to decide what makes more sense, a fuel-efficient sedan or a really small fuel-efficient car because it's just me commuting back and forth. But sometimes I need a pickup truck. And sometimes a van really works out. And we want to, 4 couples want to go together. A minivan would be awesome. Well, if I don't own vehicles, I just use them as a service. I just pick whatever I need each time.
Right. And hope that the availability is there.
Well, yeah, and it has to be. If it's not, they'll fail. And they know that. I mean, so when you think about it, it is a real, and let's think about the environment and the planet and all those other things. I do like to think about that too. We would produce a lot less vehicles. That's what the automakers are worried about. How do we go from a model where we sell all these vehicles over and over and over, and now all of a sudden we're not going to sell all these vehicles, and we're only going to be producing 1/10 the number of vehicles we used to produce and sell? They have to figure out. So that's why they're going to turn it into a service so they get all of that revenue.
Right. And you just hit the nail on the head. Because right now, when they sell that $50,000 Range Rover, actually, that would be a cheap one.
Yeah.
$50,000 car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir.
That's an escort now.
But where the automakers are making their money is on the financing. So it's not so much on making the car. It's they're so expensive that you have to finance it. So the vehicle as a service, obviously, when you do exercise the option to utilize the service, it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be a lot less expensive than keeping the car in the garage and paying for the insurance.
Correct.
And the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting concept.
It is.
And to your point, they can make those vehicles much more fuel efficient as well. And that's how the greenies get their wish come true with the, because everything will be electric.
Yep.
And they'll know exactly who's in the car, where it's going, and so on and so forth. So,
yeah. So yeah. I could point out a lot of. Often, go ahead, Henry.
That I look at how often that my personal vehicle, as you're discussing this, there's times where it's weeks that I don't use my personal vehicle.
Right. Right. How that's kind of a very, very inefficient system. And come on, I mean, all three of us grew up in the generation of cars. I mean, that the car was the center of our world. And it has been for a long time, but that's changing. And you look, the new generations don't think about vehicles the way we did. Not even close. To them, it is really just a way to get from one point to another. For us, like I said, it was we almost kind of built our life around our vehicle.
Not almost. We built our life.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's changing.
I look at, and I have the choice of 3 different vehicles to pick from.
Right. I know. But and then that idea for me, we do have more vehicles than we really need, but I still find myself needing another vehicle. Like I don't have a pickup truck, so I have to depend on pulling a trailer behind my FJ if I want to move stuff around. Having a pickup truck, and I'm going to get one. Or actually, I don't think I talked about this with you guys. I've been trying to figure out what kind of a farm vehicle I need. Because I need something. I'm always moving stuff around, and I could actually, if I could move my tractor itself around, that would be kind of nice. And so I've been thinking about, do I want an old restored FJ? Do I want an old restored diesel pickup? I've been thinking, and then you know what I got thinking about? What would be the ultimate vehicle? And I say farm. I do that just to piss off the real farmers. It's only 6 acres. It's a hobby farm at best. It's a big garden. But it's a farm to me. So I got thinking about it. I want an old mechanical engine. So I'm going to go back into, probably the 80s here.
There he is.
A mechanical engine with a little single axle day cab. And I'm thinking about like the Internationals. I used to have one that what model was that really kind of rounded off little International they used to make? I had one for about a year. It's not a Brigadier, is it? The Brigadier's the squared. I'll have to look. I can't remember. But it's kind of a tiny little day cab. And then I figured I could set up a little single axle tractor that could pull just about any kind of trailer. Put a 5th wheel on it. You put a pintle hook on it. You put a hitch on it, all at the same time. And I've even seen some combination 5th wheels where you can also connect a gooseneck. And I thought that would be the perfect farm tractor. Then it's kind of that same thing. Whatever type of trailer I need, I can hook up to and pull around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm going to look for. Little project truck. That would be fun. Do we have anything else, or should we get to some phone calls?
Yeah, you need another project.
Yeah, that's a good point. Projects mean work, so maybe I should rethink that. You're probably right. All right, we're going to go to the phones. We're going to go to Alabama. Matt, good morning.
Good morning.
Weren't you in Florida yesterday?
Yeah.
You haven't made it very far.
Just 14 miles. I'll be in Mississippi.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm on my normal schedule.
Okay.
for one more week. Next week I'll be in the same spot. The week after I'll be somewhere different on this time.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So, yeah. I guess I'm calling to disagree with you, Kevin.
Oh boy.
When we're
that's
talking
always
about
more fun.
Alternative fuel vehicles and electrical. So, and I don't have exact numbers on any of this. A lot of this is theory and stuff I've read, but nothing is for sure. The state of Georgia has the largest coal plant in the country, and they have it was one of the last coal plants, big ones, permitted in the 70s. We haven't built really any new ones. We remodified old ones, but we haven't built a new one from scratch. In another couple of months, they're going to have the largest nuclear plant also.
Really?
So, yeah, because one of their older nuclear plants, they did get permits to add 2 new reactors. And this is a 20-some year project.
Interesting.
This has been going on. They've been building these 2 reactors for a long time.
Okay.
That nuclear power plant sits on 280 acres up in northeast Georgia. It would take 43% of the state of Georgia covered in solar panels to produce as much electricity as that one nuclear plant.
I'm all for nuclear.
So the whole green movement.
I know.
Yeah, and wind is better than solar, but only where it works.
Right,
and it
which is very
still
limited.
Doesn't work in most
Correct.
of the country.
And I live in a place where it should work really well, and we can't use it all that often here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So wind and why it works so well in the Midwest, but unfortunately, where it works so well in the Midwest, there isn't the demand for it.
Right. There's nothing
so
there.
You're what we call the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountains.
Right.
They don't have high wind. Oh, I mean, they have high winds in spots, but they have consistent winds.
Steady. Right.
Normal 5 to 10 mile an hour winds all the time. They never completely die off. It's the consistency part, not the high wind.
Right.
That's what makes wind generation work. So,
but
Kevin,
to your point, Matt, now you have to transmit that energy. So just as Kevin was discussing earlier, there's a conversion and all of that and transmission losses and so on. And so what you have to do is get electric power generation where the demand is located, and there's a massive disconnect. So, Wyoming doesn't have a whole lot of people. So I think there's more cattle than population, actually. So there is an issue, and that's frankly, as Kevin was saying, that's why nuclear has some benefits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm all pro nuclear with the safety standards in place. I'm not just saying let anybody build one, but it's got to be managed. But so Kevin, when you say the battery electric works because every building already has electricity.
Yeah.
In order, the amount of electricity we need to replace gas and diesel, we have to quadruple our electricity.
No, I get it.
We don't have buildings that are wired to be charging trucks.
No, I get it.
We don't have cities that are wired to be charging trucks.
But it's easier. I mean, it's already there. We already built the network. We have to upgrade it. And that's what I said. And I don't see that as being a big issue other than the fact that they keep blocking better ways to produce more electricity. They're the ones that want to go green, and yet they're the ones that block producing the electricity we need to go green. It just seems to me like it has to be easier to upgrade a network. And here's the other thing. We have the potential. There's nothing stopping us from having enough electricity at every building. There is nothing in the way. There's no new technology we need to develop. We know the cost of doing it, and it would be at every building. None of these other alternative fuels can do that. You can't put hydrogen at every building ever. You're not going to put diesel fuel at every building ever.
That's where I'm not sure you're correct. Not every building, yes, you are correct.
Well, not even
But
close.
the cost to completely rewire our whole country, all new transformers to quadruple the electricity we need is way more expensive than building a hydrogen network.
It could be, but we need it. We need it
gas
anyway
stations and all that.
because we should harden our current electrical grid because it's in danger.
Well, I agree with that too, but yeah, just the cost to convert everything to electric is more expensive.
Now, another reason why I really do like electric? Let me give you one more reason. It is the only one of these forms of energy that I can produce myself at home.
Probably not enough to charge your own vehicle.
Oh, I could.
Even your own, well, for the miles you drive, yes.
Well,
but
right.
For the average person,
if you had to
not.
commute every day, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on where you live. There's a lot of factors, how much you're willing to invest, but costs can always come down. I mean, think about it. I have 4 acres of a field to put solar panels in.
And I don't know, again, I don't know all these numbers. For somebody who drives a very reasonable distance for commuting every day, I bet you'd need that 4 acres of solar.
It'd be interesting to know. And I am always of the belief
buying gas.
that those technologies have gotten much, much better over the years. Solar panels are more efficient. Batteries are more efficient. They store more. That's not going to stop. And if we get a couple big breakthroughs, I know I keep going back to solid state batteries, but if we get a solid state battery the way that I've seen they're attempting, you would easily charge your own vehicle from a couple solar panels on the roof.
Yeah, I don't know.
If we get there.
I don't have the numbers on all of it, but every time I read about it, it's, well, they estimated this and they weren't even.
No, that is true. That take anything they say and cut it in half is probably closer to accurate.
But this whole discussion. So what I find interesting about all of this is the complexities of just talking about electric and charging for your house and everything else between the three of us. And look how complicated that is. Take the whole issue that you, Kevin, were discussing earlier about trucking and, whether it's hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen internal combustion, whether it's battery electric, whether it's hybrid, whether it's diesel, whether it's a combination thereof. And now you just start to peel back the onion and realize just how complex of an issue, as you said, this next decade is going to be to flesh out these different technologies.
Yeah. Well,
it is going to be blowing our mind.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's something else we haven't thrown into the mix here. This is complicated. The future, we can't really see. It's not very clear. I hate to say this, but do you know what technology is going to help us solve a lot of these problems?
AI.
Yes. I hate to say that. I wish AI didn't exist. But it is a very, very powerful technology. And we're just at the very beginning of it. And it's already improving and changing so fast that really it's scary. I didn't even want to read the article, but I saw the headline yesterday. Microsoft just released its first AI computer. Now, people might not understand what that means. Right now, it requires giant servers somewhere to run the AI program that everybody is using. So you log into ChatGPT and you connect to their giant, crazy, powerful servers to be able to run AI. But that's already changing, and it looks like Microsoft is either bringing out or has brought out a computer that will run the AI itself. That's how fast
Yeah,
that's
you're
changing.
above my head talking about this stuff.
I know, and it's changing fast, but that technology is going to allow all other technologies to advance even faster. That's what's scary.
Okay, so I'll say what was my scary part when you talk about autonomous and obviously the job loss in the trucking industry, but even just the car side. If we went to that subscription service where you don't own a vehicle,
right,
and one just shows up for you, like Uber now.
Yeah.
You were saying majority of the cars are been 95% parked in the garage or parked in a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting used.
Right.
So if we look at peak use, which is rush hour, do you think even 50% of the vehicles in this country are on the road during rush hour?
Probably not. No.
So auto manufacturers can cut their production in half once we go to full autonomous and nobody needs to own a vehicle?
I think so, and that's what they're so worried about. How do they continue just only I mean, their whole business model is producing and selling vehicles, and they sell a lot of them. That's why they're scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to stay in business.
Yeah, so there's a lot more job losses.
Yeah, exactly. And then think about the cascade effect of that. We're in an industry, we move an awful lot of stuff for automakers. That is a big part of our freight volume.
Yep.
Sure.
I know. Crazy stuff.
And, it's not like it's going to happen overnight. It's
correct.
Even if we have that service available tomorrow, it's a small percentage of the population that'll start using it, and it'll pick up steam over a decade to get fully, I don't know that it'll ever be fully used by everybody, but, to get to the 90% of the population that doesn't need to own a vehicle.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. So now let's talk about how crazy our world is becoming, the whole autonomous thing. And it's happening a lot more than people think. Is it Chick-fil-A? One of the big fast food chains announced this week they are delivering food with autonomous robots. It's happening right now. And we know it's happening. Here, I thought this was interesting yesterday. All the Israel protests going on at the campuses all over the country. So I guess they're in one of these encampments and they're hungry because they don't have any food there and they're not leaving. So they started ordering, I don't remember which campus this was at, but they ordered food and it was being delivered by a robot. And the picture is there's two or three standing there kind of smirking or laughing, and they're blocking the robots. They won't let them into the encampment. That's the crazy world we live in now.
Well, so on the farming side, autonomous is really big too.
Yeah.
And for the main reason, they can't get enough employees.
Here we go again.
It's seasonal.
Right.
Your field work in the spring and the fall.
Right.
So I know everything in John Deere's newest series on their large tractors, not your smaller stuff, but the large stuff is all autonomous capable already. It's already all in there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily hooked up yet, but the technology is already in there. They've been testing it for years already. Then they're at the point they can run. So, for example, in the fall and harvest, you just still have a guy in the combine because that's the most important if you're watching for stuff. But he'll have the controls, the grain cart, and even tillage equipment, all that. He could be the one guy operating the combine and running 5 pieces of equipment all in the same field.
Wow. That's just crazy.
No.
But again, it's it's such a weird thought. We've been talking about these topics for a while now. They're all kind of coming together. But this idea of we're all freaked out, and rightfully so, that autonomous technology, robots, AI, all three of those technologies displace workers. Lots of them. AI alone, as simple as it is right now, AI isn't all that powerful right now, but we can see the potential. But AI is already disrupting workers. If you had a business where it was, you had a lot of writers, like copywriters, you can now do the same amount of work better with one person than 10 used to be able to do. And somebody's going to go, oh, yeah, but it's AI and you can tell it's AI. No, you can't. When people are really good with AI, it writes really, really well. It's very clear, it's concise, it's accurate, and it is crazy fast. So we're all worried about we're putting everybody out of a job. But on the other hand, the whole world seems to be facing this crisis of not enough people. Which one is it? That seems confusing to me that we're facing those two issues. We're afraid that all this technology is putting us out of a job, but our industries can't even run efficiently right now because we don't have enough people.
Well, that's another road that we could do a whole show on that, Kevin.
I know.
Because earnings have just come out recently, with some of these trucking companies, and I'm getting a little sick and tired. Landstar was the last one that did it yesterday or the day before, and they're announcing that their earnings are way down because they can't get enough drivers. Hello. I thought we had an oversupply of capacity.
That's exactly
that
right.
Seems
we're
intellectually ignoramus.
We're arguing that same thing just in trucking. We need more drivers. Wait a minute. We have too much capacity. Yeah. Which one is it? It can't be both.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It can be both.
Yeah.
And here's why. Here's why. Here's exactly why it could be both. I just realized what I just said was wrong. What we know we have a lot of are new entrants into the market, new authorities. That's one truck, one driver. Those guys are out there struggling, but they're still there. They're hanging on. That's our overcapacity. On the other hand, you had fleets that built out their driver pool like crazy in the last couple of years and tried to add capacity because the rates were so good. They're the ones that need drivers.
Yes, but you said a month ago there was a shift from the megas, if you will, to individual owner operators. It's the same number of drivers. They've just moved.
Right. So
they went from one payroll to their own payroll.
Yeah. So
it's
now
the same number of drivers.
Yeah, but then they left a truck sitting. There's a company truck somewhere they used to drive, and now that truck's sitting, and that company says we have a driver shortage.
Right, but there's also a volume shortage.
But we still have too much capacity.
Yeah, slight because of the age of the new ones coming in and the baby boomers that are retiring and even dying off. We're not getting the replacement we need, but right at the moment we have enough drivers, we just don't have them in the right places.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Matt, we're gonna we're gonna move on because you're right. We could talk about this stuff for the rest of the weekend, but I don't plan on doing that. We're going to go to Nebraska. Brad, welcome to the program.
Yeah, I got a question for Henry.
All right.
Is Henry there?
That's a good question. Henry, you still there? Henry? He's on the board. I haven't heard from him in a while, though.
Oh.
Henry.
Well, the question that I had,
I'm going to, hold on a second. I'm going to put Henry back in the queue. Chelsea, can you grab Henry and see what, if he fell asleep or what he's doing? Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, what I was wondering, he had a latest article. He helped a guy that runs hopper bottoms spec a Freightliner, and he was talking about he put an AirTech front steer axle on it. And I was wondering if he just did it just for the overall weight savings, or is a front air suspension useful in balancing out the weight with a liftable axle?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't see any way we would be able to really shift any weight just because we've got some air on that axle, but I could be wrong. Henry's in the screening room right now, so we'll see if we can get him back in here to talk about it. Alec, can you think of any way that would work?
Well, I was thinking of just the opposite, quite frankly. If you do lift an axle, like on a 6x2 situation, you are moving the weight forward. We actually wanted to get away from a pure, like the Hendrickson AirTech axle. So we have on Purple Haze a hybrid. We have a upgraded parabolic leaf spring on the front with airbags to supplement that. And I don't know if that's what was, I saw that article, but I didn't read it. So I don't know if that's what they were doing. So I really can't comment beyond that, unfortunately.
Okay. I know Joel has talked about sometimes that's why he's running the bigger tires in the front, because of the weight transfer.
Yeah,
correct.
Sometimes with the tag axle.
We lost Henry. Yeah, you know,
with the pusher axle.
I can't see how just air on that front axle would really change any of that. But we've been talking about this idea of we had to get bigger axles up in the front because we've got more weight to spread out, and more of it's up in the tractor now, and that's working well. You know, the concept I really, really wanted to play around with, even though it will probably never be mainstream, but it gives you crazy amounts of flexibility on this, is the sliding kingpin.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very expensive. I did explore that because you did talk about that 10 years ago, and I was intrigued.
I was
and
too.
I did talk to Link about it, and it's a fairly expensive undertaking.
That's why it's never going to be mainstream unless somebody
and I think
figures out a way to get that cost down. For me, it was that idea of pushing the envelope again. Even though it's expensive, could we build a case that it's efficient? And in some cases, I think it could be. We just don't have any real testing, or nobody's ever really looked at it. But when you start looking at having the ability to slide tandems, slide the fifth wheel, and slide the kingpin, you can absolutely shift your weight almost anywhere you need to put it.
Yeah, how much extra weight would the rails add?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, probably not much.
It was pretty minimal. Yeah.
I don't know that there's a net benefit.
Well,
and certainly not from an ROI standpoint, because what we have with Purple Haze, we don't have to move the fifth wheel.
Right. Yeah. You guys came up with a solution that's probably better. Here's why I was exploring that technology. I wanted to build not a 6x2. I wanted to build a 4x2 that could pull the same amount of weight as any 6x4 on the road. And I got really close. And with today's lightweight technologies,
I think you were up to 72,000.
I think I got even closer than that when I started.
Weren't you up to like 72,000?
I might have been up to like mid 70s. Even I think I even got past 75 when you started to add some really lightweight components to the truck. So we would build a 4x2, just a single axle tractor. There's a ton of advantages there, but with a heavy front axle and the tires to carry the weight, and with the sliding kingpin. And I was putting spread axles on the trailer. That was the other way. We got to the point where it was really, really close. You could scale almost every load on this 4x2 that you could on a 6x4. But at that point, it's also very
if you're at 20,000 pounds per axle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
but I got out of the business of building
Okay,
and
well, that's what I was
testing
wondering.
trucks before we. All right, Brad, thanks for the call. Let's get to some other calls. Let's go to Iowa. Lenny, welcome to the program.
Hey guys. I got two things. One, we were just at Patrick's shop Wednesday, got a turbo EGR cooler and overhead done. He had us in there and out of there in like 10 hours, which is
nice.
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and $7,400. I mean, yeah, really good. The other thing was on my truck, I got a 17 6x2 Volvo, 2.5 rears, 12 speed, just a normal setup when they first came out with it. I can't go any lower on the rear axle because the casing, but the RPM, it's a 405 1700, but it's got that dynamic torque where it fluctuates. Is there any way to get rid of that dynamic torque in the parameters, or
Yes.
do you have to do?
Yes.
You can. Okay. Patrick.
Well, good question. I don't know if it's in the parameters, but it can be done.
Okay, because Patrick was telling me you had to go and get the rewrite to.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
The ECM.
All right.
But
yeah. Okay.
yeah, I think that is correct. It's not just a flip the switch on a parameter; it's a reflash of the ECM. But it can be done.
Okay.
Did I hear you say that's a D11? Is that right?
No, it's a 13.
Okay.
No, it's a D13.
All right.
Yeah.
And
but it's
is
got the
it
mirror torque
2.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. You can't go to like a, well,
I can't go any
you
lower.
couldn't
Yeah.
go you can't go taller without increasing the horsepower anyway.
Yep.
I mean,
and that's what he was suggesting.
405.
455. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I don't know that you.
If I was gonna do it, would I go to 455,
yes.
1750?
I'm going to defer. That's more of a Joel question. My gut reaction is yes. You might even do better, even at 425 or 435. If you're going to reflash it, you might as well do that at the same time.
Gotcha.
I don't know what. So you have a D13 2017, so you could go to 450.
Yeah, he was.
And if you turn the dynamic torque off, you probably would be better off at a higher horsepower, so you can better utilize that. That
drop
veers.
because where my shift point is like right at 64 miles an hour. So it's kind of hard to keep it at 62 and 12 because it's down to just a hair under 1,000 RPM. And this is a BDC motor. I don't know if that's good for that.
Right. Well, it's a lot happier at 1125 RPM.
Which puts me up to 68.
Yeah. So the other thing that would really help you is an air dog. That changes the personality of some of those lower horsepower. Okay. That really turns that thing into a very nice performing vehicle. Especially for those sorts of setups with a tall rears and things like that. But yes, and reflashing that ECM and changing the horsepower.
That's right about what, $800 to do that?
I was going to say it's not much. It's probably in that range. It's not terribly expensive, and you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak.
And then they have to send you the new sticker for the valve cover and that?
I believe they do. Yeah. I can't remember. I did it. I went the other way around. I went from 500 to 425.
Okay.
And I do think, well, it was a much older truck, and now with what we know, I wouldn't do that. But I had at the time a 3.25 rear axle ratio, and when I re-ratioed, I went to 2.47. And then, yes, I would have preferred to have the 500 back. But Yeah. So I think you're going in the right direction.
The other thing we were looking at, we're going to keep this for about 2 to 3 years. We do about 80,000 miles a year. We're bed buggers, so we don't do a lot of miles.
Right.
But we were looking what Kevin was saying about the 4x2 instead of the 6x2. We have a spread axle double drop, so we can go 40,000 on the back. And we were looking at getting a heavier front axle with just a single axle. I mean, you could scale it out easy enough.
Right.
You wouldn't have any problems with it. I don't know if that would be a good way to go or not. Because then you got the resale value of the vehicle. You kind of stuck with it.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Two things. One.
Okay.
I don't put a whole lot of emphasis on resale value. Here's why. And I went through this. I bought a lot of single axles because I pulled doubles. And single axles over a tandem is a huge annual savings. Fuel, maintenance, all kinds of things. There's a lot of advantages. Let's just go through the math. You know, you buy a new truck today, I guess we're going to say 200,000 if we're going to buy new. Or I bought many 6x4s and converted them to a 4x2, and it's not all that expensive. I had a shop that we had a good deal worked out with. They got all the parts. They got tires, rims, differentials, airbags. They got it all.
Is that possible today with the electronics?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we had ABS when I was doing this.
Back then.
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I know we've got some traction control.
I know, like even with this setup.
Yeah, you might have to be a little pickier if you're going to try to convert today. But let's just go back to the new truck. We pay $200,000. In my world, the way I've worked out the numbers over and over and over is you buy the truck new, spec it well, maintain it right, and keep it until it needs that in-frame. Now, I don't even know how that works in today's world because these things don't ever seem to need in-frames anymore. But that was typically for me on a Series 60.
It doesn't even use any oil.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So maybe this model even starts to work out better because the trucks will last longer and longer. Maybe we're going to go well past 1.5 before we even think about getting rid of this truck. At that point, everything is worth about the same, $10,000 to $15,000. Maybe in today's world, it's 15 to 20.
In my world, that's 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Who cares about resale value? Right. It doesn't matter. And
that's
honestly, they are a little more difficult to sell, but single axle sleepers usually bring a premium because there's not many of them. It's a supply and demand issue. You want to use single axle sleeper, there's just not that many of them.
6x2.
Yeah.
You can't find a 6x2.
That's what I mean.
Anywhere.
Right. So I think if you have an operation that you're fairly sure you can continue with and you could build a 4x2, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right. That clears it up a lot better. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks for the call. Hey, this is totally off topic, but does anybody recognize the name Morgan Spurlock? When I say anybody, Alec, I'm only talking to you because you're the only one that can respond.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know why.
Yeah, so this was the guy, I don't remember when he did this. This was the guy that created that documentary called Super Size Me, and he only ate McDonald's for 30 days and gained all that weight, and he measured all of his vital signs and blood pressure and blood sugar and all kinds of things at the beginning. Then he only ate McDonald's for 30 days. And he gained a bunch of weight, and his all of his markers were an absolute mess. And he was famous for it. You know, he did a documentary all about it. He's dead now at 53. He died. complications from
Well, he proved his
cancer.
point.
Yeah. Complications from cancer. I'm sure his binge eating McDonald's didn't help anything, but it's also. Am I on YouTube today? I think I am. If I say what I'm about to say, I'll get spanked and kicked off YouTube again, and it might be my third strike. I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. I don't even. We don't stream on YouTube on Wednesdays anymore because it's the health show. I believe this is another one of those cases of turbo cancer from the vaccine. There's a lot of that going on. But when you say it, you tend to get kicked off YouTube. So we'll see. Eventually, I'm going to get kicked off YouTube anyway. They tend to censor me for all kinds of things. Let's go to Georgia this time. Paul, welcome to the. Oh, hold on, things are moving. Paul, good morning.
Howdy.
Hey, are you calling to tell me one of my ideas sucks?
Yeah.
You know, if you called to disagree with me, I charge twice the usual rate for calls if you're going to disagree with me.
Well, that's all right. Double or quits.
All right.
So, in the auto transport world there for a while, they had sliding kingpins on trailers.
Did they really?
They're absolutely terrible. Yeah.
What was wrong with them?
That's before they really started sticking the 14.6 front axle.
Right.
We had to suck the trailer up to get to the 75 feet. But you didn't want to push all that weight up onto the steer axle. So the sliding kingpin moved the trailer forward, but it didn't really move the weight forward. But you'd be riding down the road, and you'd put the brakes on, and you'd feel the trailer clunk, push you, then you'd take off, clunk. It was
well, that
terrible.
Sucks. Why can't we fix that, though? That shouldn't be an issue.
Well, I think it didn't have a real snug fitting hole where the pin would drop down.
I guess
it's
not.
Like they drilled a 2-inch hole, but put a 1.5-inch pin in there.
Well, that's what I mean. It sounds like that's a fairly simple engineering issue to overcome that. Or it would seem like it to me anyway.
The experience I had with it was terrible. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. It's not going to matter. Nobody ever listens to me when I talk about it anyway, so there must be some reason not to do it.
Yeah. Well, I could probably think of some, but and then talking about air ride front axles, you see a lot of these guys, and I'll put this in the same category as the big tall shifter. They cut the half of the springs out of on the steer axle and then put a airbag in there, and it looks like one skinny ass little spring and then airbags. I don't know what it does to the weight rating of the front axle, so they can drop it on the ground when they park to look cool or something. I just don't understand it, but each to their own. So,
hey, I just happened to look down at my chat from my live video stream. If a guy is sending me a text on the chat saying I have beautiful eyes, should I be concerned?
Yes.
Okay. I thought
Oh, wait,
so.
we can't say that.
Oh, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a joke.
last time I checked, it's still a free country.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, and I will say
that's my 2 cents worth on me.
You might be onto something, Alec, though. That comment did come from YouTube, and that's where I get deleted all the time. So maybe I should be careful.
Oh, and now they're calling me.
Hey, Joel finally decided to show up for work. Joel, good morning.
You know, I've been screaming at the radio. You know this, right?
I figured we could tease you in here.
Yeah, I would be the counterpoint guy today all day long.
I know.
I don't know.
That's why I was looking
But,
forward to you being here, and then I heard
for
you're
sure.
not going to make it because you had a bad week.
Well, we've had a difficult week working through challenges, which that's trucking, right?
That's right.
It's just the way it is. But I'm down here in Chicago proper, and I just didn't want to be on the phone running around with all the low bridges and stuff. But I made it to where I need to be. I'm early, and I've got a few minutes, so I figured I'd call in.
Excellent. So go down the list.
Now, real quick, let me set you straight on transferring weight. The only time you really transfer any significant weight or properly transfer weight is when you have a axle that's in the center of a group, and then you can adjust air up and down, and you can transfer weight to the steer or back to the drive, and it eliminates the need for the sliding kingpin. For the most part, it can also eliminate the need for a sliding fifth wheel. All the mechanical forms of sliding, if we have the wheelbase right with the proper fifth wheel position. Volvo's really pursuing these smart suspensions. You're going to see them rolled out over the next few years, and it's going to be very helpful for drivers to really just fine-tune weight with buttons on the dash.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
let me tell you why your 4x2 is not going to work.
Okay.
Okay, so this goes back to, and this is very well known in Europe, and it's well known to guys that are on snowy mountain passes where we have to look at percentage of the gross combination vehicle weight on the drive axle in order to maintain tractive effort. So we're always want minimum at 25%. We would prefer 28 to 30% of the gross combination vehicle weight. So when we go to a 4x2, that part of it's kind of okay, but when we go to the trailer with the spread axle, now you're not going to hit that percentage that we're looking for on the drive axle because we have a spread, and you're going to have traction and tire wear issues.
So
that's why that's not really going to work that well. So when we close that tandem up and we lift an axle on the truck and the trailer, and they have to be center axles because we want to load endpoints, and the center axles allow us to kick weight around. That's why the 6x2 is far superior to the 4x2 in the North American market because of our kingpin settings and our bridge formula law.
That would explain why it works with doubles, though.
Yes.
Why it's an efficient way to pull doubles.
And even doubles are challenging. So when you look at especially the turnpike doubles, you can be, when they're heavy, you're really pushing that limit of tractive effort, and this is why in the wintertime you see the long combination triples can have some issues. You've got a very short wheelbase truck which has fast reaction to steering because the frame's so short, so steering input is exaggerated, and you are down around 22-23% of your gross combination vehicle weight on the drive axle. It's kind of the worst of both worlds, and why they're a little more challenging when the weather is not optimal. I get why companies want to run them because they're efficient as hell at moving freight.
They are, and this isn't all downside. This stuff you're talking about, all this stuff you're talking about, just makes our job more interesting. It's just more fun to drive those. It's more challenging.
It does, and yeah, especially when you got the back one doing the wiggle, right?
That's right.
But one of the things that we need to think about, and you're talking about the long combination vehicles. In order for that to become reality, we have to be more like Europe in terms of actual weight they're going to allow us to put on the drives to square that percentage of gross combination vehicle weight over the drives when we're doing this long combination vehicles. If we don't get legislation to change that,
right,
forget about the long combination vehicles because you're going to be eating tires and you're going to be stuck everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you listening when we were talking about, or have you been looking at the Kenworth Super Truck?
I did see that.
Pretty
I
interesting.
absolutely saw that.
Yeah.
And I listened to the conversation where Alec was asking about the diesel with the higher efficiency rating. That was a Chinese company that was working with Deutz, I believe. And they were like 52 or 53%. PACCAR is claiming they're going to be at 55%. I think you're going to hear some news out of all the manufacturers where they're going to go over this 50% mark that we've been at for so long. We all love to bitch about, the EPA's mandating this or that, but this is also driving some of this efficiency that we're going to see. And I think to the betterment of the industry, there's a lot of upside to it that we don't like to talk about. We just love to bitch about EPA and how evil they are, but
they are evil.
It is going to help with the efficiency for sure. Well, we all have our own opinions.
Well, not only, hey,
I don't know.
Not only do I get to bitch about them on my trucking days now, like I have, I now get to bitch about them on my health day too. Now they are,
really?
Yeah, they are.
What's
they
EPA
are
doing?
They are. We promote small regenerative farming. It solves a ton of problems. I can almost stand with the vegans saying the way we raise animals in this country is horrendous. It's horrible for the animals. It's horrible for the environment. It's not good for us. It should change. I am all for we should all be eating lots of animals, but we have to raise them right. And what we do now is horrible. So we've had this push towards these small regenerative farms, and some of them are getting pretty decent size and still staying very regenerative. White Oak Pastures in Georgia is one of the examples. We've had the owners of White Oak on the show. So now all of a sudden that movement is growing and it's good for us. The EPA is coming in and saying, we don't care what size you are. We don't care how regenerative you are. You're going to put in a water filtration system because the water that comes off these farms is horribly contaminated. Well, off the factory farms, it is. You're right. But the whole point of a regenerative farm is we stop all of that. But now these small farms can't afford these filtration systems.
Sure.
So I still think the EPA is evil. Now they're even more evil.
I am with you that there are a lot of aspects that are screwed up like that. I don't know. In my mind, the whole Lake Erie thing and the Cuyahoga River just sticks in my mind. And
I was there too.
You know the backstory
I was there
to this.
too. I know.
That's the
You're
river
right.
from 1950 to 1971, caught on fire how many times?
Way too
many.
And
Lake Erie was essentially dead for how many years?
Yeah. No, I get it.
You look at this now, and it's just as pristine as can be. So it's not
agree.
all bad. Let's
It
just
isn't.
put it that way.
Isn't.
We can agree on that it's not all bad.
And I do want it. I want a clean environment. I really do.
Yes.
Yeah. But here's a case where
what we
they're
need
working,
is accountability. You need EPA with accountability. There's no accountability there, and that's the problem.
I would be okay if we change the structure of our government so that these alphabet agencies are held accountable. Because the problem is we can't hold them accountable because we don't get to vote for them. That's my biggest problem. That we should not be able to make these kind of draconian regulations, and it's somebody we didn't get to vote for and we can't get rid of. That's my problem. Really,
I agree.
Well,
that aspect
I disagree.
Is there.
We do vote for him. I mean, we vote for the chief executive. And
but it's
he gets to set.
You see
he or
these.
she gets to set.
I know. But
agency.
Then there's another problem. Now you'll never get anywhere because now every 4 years you get a new administration, and we got to figure out a better system.
Well,
we let these agencies really write a lot of regulations that affect us every single day. We've given them too much power. So all I'm saying is we need more checks and balances in that system.
I agree. We have to refine the system. There is a lot of nonsense and bullshit that goes on. Let's just call it what it is. But
Yeah.
they've also you have to give credit where credit's due. They have done some very, very impressive things over the years. Love Canal up in New York, that was just a horrible situation.
Yeah.
The whole Lake Erie Cuyahoga River thing. These are not little success stories,
and I will say
millions of people, and they've done a decent job.
And I will say, as much of a capitalist as I am, you can't leave it all to the free market. Not with things like that. So I do agree with that. I am a libertarian. I am for far, far fewer regulations than we have right now, and more common sense and more checks and balances. So just expect I'm going to continue to bitch about them.
Yes, no, I hear you. And in regards to the money that they spend on the super truck projects, just keep in mind they are held to a much higher weight standard than what we are when we're running general freight. When they're meeting 12 and 13 miles a gallon, they're doing that at 80,000 pounds, where we're just hauling stuff off the load board.
Yeah.
Some of it is at 80,000, some of it's not. So you do have that. That being said, they did spend a barrel of money, and you would think, like looking at that truck, you would think that's a 16 or 17 mile a gallon truck.
That's what I would expect.
12, and that doesn't excite me. Yeah, that doesn't excite me at all.
And I have to say,
they closed in the steer axle on it. I mean, it is totally enclosed, and they're still only getting 12.
It looks like a hovercraft. Wow. Yeah, it looks like a hovercraft. Some pretty cool technology. The whole reverse blade. Frame rails and dropping the engine down low and back, and I mean, there's some pretty cool stuff in there. There's no doubt. And I do. This is how we have to progress. These concept trucks. This is how we have to do it. I get it. But when you look at the money they spend, and you look at how radical the truck is, you just expect bigger numbers.
Yes. You do, but here's a couple of things, just so people understand, because I know people are like, oh, it's our tax money and this is bullshit. So when OEMs engage in projects like this, they learn what works and what doesn't before it hits the market. And we did not have programs like this when emissions were first rolled out. And this is exactly why we got our asses kicked on the first emissions rollout.
Yeah, we did.
When they really rolled out emissions, we had no super truck. Nobody really knew anything, and they're just going, okay, I think this is going to work. Let's slap it on there. Nobody knew anything. Now with the super truck projects, we start to learn what works and what does. It's not perfect,
right?
But we have a much better idea as emissions get tighter and tighter and tighter, what's actually going to work because of emissions. The second thing is, when we look at these trucks and we're going, man, those results just aren't that impressive. Remember that these are engineers in cubicles working on computers, and it's typically their hand-picked engineer buddies driving these trucks around. They've got no clue in the real world about kinetic energy and roll windows and rolling out. So when you get a 12 mile a gallon truck that's pulling 80,000 pounds and they don't know how to leverage a roll window, you put a guy like Travis in there, he's going to take that 12 to 15.
Yeah, that's a good point,
because he understands what's going on with kinetic energy and how to leverage the benefits of that. So, I know we love to beat up on this kind of stuff. I don't like it when we get overly negative, because there is a lot of positive behind the scenes that we don't necessarily put the pieces of the puzzle together, and we're just looking at them going, oh, you spent all that money. Listen, there are multiple benefits. It's like when we went to the moon. Hell, we got Tang out of that, right?
Hey, we got Velcro.
How good was that?
We got Velcro. The microwave. We got Velcro. We got there's no doubt. We got a lot of cool. All right, I'll make you a deal, Joel.
Yep.
I'm going to continue to bitch about all this stuff just as much as I do, and then you have to come on after me and counter it all.
Well, I mean, a lot of the points you make are valid. There is no doubt. It is not a perfect world, but yeah, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, that'll work.
I kind of look for the positive. You know what? If you don't look for the positive, you go freaking crazy.
No, I
really
get it, and I like when you bring in the positive.
There's got to be some positive.
Yeah,
to it.
And here's the thing: I'm usually a really positive person. I really am. It's the government that makes me crazy, and I let them. I dwell on it. So when you come on and you kind of give me some balance, and it's a good thing. So
the government and trucking will do that. Both of them will make you crazy.
Just make you a little crazy. Now let's go on.
No, that works.
Let's go on and talk about this. What do you think of Volvo's announcement of trucks as a service?
So they've been doing that with cars, kind of. You can order it up, and they've done that for a while, where you just pay a flat amount on through an app. And now it's not what you're talking about. They just show up with a car. You kind of keep it. It's more of an app-based thing where I think we're kind of feeling around, testing and probing to move to this on the commercial side. I think we're going to see a combination of things. I do not think that the owner-operator or individuals in the trucks are ever going to totally go away.
I don't think so.
But it will absolutely be duty cycles where it makes no sense to have people in a truck.
Right.
So I think the technology is probably going to be good moving forward. And what I think is going to happen is we are going to get some people off the road that probably should never be driving a truck. And then I think what will happen is we will be considered a very skilled position, and hopefully we'll see wages increase because, if you have to have a person in that truck, there's obviously something special going on that the computer by itself is not going to be able to handle.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Let's, was there anything else you wanted to comment on?
Just the fact that Travis has just been knocking things out of the ballpark fuel efficiency wise. That damn truck is just killing it.
It's pretty impressive.
He had a week where he was at 12.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
It's 12.08 for a week.
What are you feeding him?
I'm like, what in the hell? Oh my gosh! I'm telling you.
Yeah.
He is just killing it. And he's not all light. And he's pulling Schneider trailers.
Yeah.
And I mean, just absolutely killing it. And the thing about this, and here's the thing about this. So everybody tells me, 6x2s don't make that much a difference. Air Dog doesn't make that much difference. Fuel treatment doesn't make that much difference. Bullshit.
Exactly.
That's all I can say. Complete, utter nonsense. That stuff makes a difference when it's used correctly, and when we got a guy dispatching like Alec who understands time and speed management, when you have a driver like Travis that understands time and speed management, and then we optimize the mechanicals, and then we add in the little products that we know work, like the Air Dog, like the fuel treatment that we use, the BASF ultra low viscosity lubes that we're using, the Michelin tires with all the 6 different layers of rubber and the extrusion that we're using. All this stuff works.
I'm glad you just said that. And I want to come back to this point about stuff working. So remind me if I go off track too far. In the article about the Kenworth Super Truck, they talked about tires and that they were significantly lighter. I don't remember the number now, but it was 355 pounds lighter maybe. And I'm assuming they're talking about a combination of all the tires on the truck and trailer to get to that 355 pounds.
Sure.
But they also said significantly more efficient in rolling resistance than anything we have now. And I know you're not allowed to say too much, but are they talking about what you're talking about?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
This is common. It's going to be. This is going to be mainstream relatively quick because there are some big advances that are coming down the pike that obviously we can't give any details out.
Yeah.
Michelin is really going to lead the way on this, and and I'm going to just put it out there for the record. I have been extremely hard on Michelin for several years now.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're charging us for a premium product and you're not really any better than the second tier stuff. they didn't like that. You know? come here and look at this, and we're going to explain some stuff to you that we can't show. You know, so
you know what they said to you, Joel?
After I was,
they looked at you and said, they looked at you and said, "Hold my beer."
Well, that's about
exactly.
right. So they had a lot of things going on in the background that people aren't aware of, and just the tires. Well, just look at Purple Haze. I mean, who in the hell would have thought that you're going to have guys that's in the mid to high 11s, touching 12, week after week after week now, running regular van freight, pulling Schneider trailers without all the aero on it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for improvement, believe it or not. We've identified several areas where we think that we can really, kick the tires and light the fires here. It's going to get better, and I think that we're going to give the electric truck people fits big time. I don't think diesel's going away anytime soon.
If we could get down to real world numbers on electric, you're right. Electric is not ready for prime time, not even close. Even in the operations where we talk about that it could be feasible, okay, it's feasible. It'll work. It'll work all day long. It'll work all year long. Tell us about cost. I mean, that's what's making me crazy. It's almost like they do everything they can to hide the really important numbers. Nobody will tell us what these trucks weigh half the time. They won't tell us what the cost is going to be. I mean,
Yes, they do. And I will tell you that as Alpha Drivers Testing and Consulting, we have been fortunate enough to have developed a relationship with PepsiCo. And that they're running some Tesla trucks. Right. They're running some other electric stuff. They have and I'm not at liberty to discuss any of their data, but I have seen a lot of things. And I will just tell you that you're right. None of this stuff is ready for prime time. It's just not. Now, they're way out on the forefront. They are a great, great company as far as implementing these stuff, collecting the data, understanding, what's happening, what's working, what the challenges are. Frankly, I'm surprised at the amount of money that they spend doing that.
I'm sure.
Hats off to them.
No, absolutely. We need
that.
We need that.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It just, absolutely. They are, earlier I was talking about this Lion 8 truck that's going to be available this year. I've never even heard of it. And now all of a sudden it's going to be available in a couple months is what this article claimed. But it's really heavy, and it's only got a range of 275 miles. And that's best case. We know that.
And when
they're not giving us middle of the road range. They're giving us absolute best conditions range.
Right, exactly. And also keep this in mind. When these small manufacturers pop up, and I'm going to call Tesla in the semi end of it a small manufacturer.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they are very small.
Right.
They don't have any support network in the field like Freightliner or Volvo. Everybody bitches about Volvo. Oh, how terrible their support network is. They've got a pretty robust support network nowadays, and it's not good enough for people. What in the hell are these electric truck companies?
It's going to be
startups
awful.
Going to do that? Build 15 trucks and say, "Oh, look, we're conquering the world." It's a joke.
Speaking of which, did you hear my comment
I
about all the programs the OEMs are rolling out around their electric vehicles?
Now, let me clarify something on this as well. So you had made the statement that why didn't they do this on all the emission stuff? They do that. We send our techs constantly back to school for emission stuff. They do this.
You said do again.
Yeah, right. Sometimes it's do. There's no doubt.
No, it just kind of makes me crazy that they have. I mean, they are going all out. Like you get concierge services the way they're describing this. All I was asking for was just at least answer my spec questions right when I'm at the dealer trying to buy a truck. We can't even get that.
Dealer training is problematic.
I know.
Salespeople are typically handshakers and baby kissers, and they don't understand engineering.
Yeah.
And this is not an easy thing to get your mind around.
It's
one
not.
thing real quick, and I'm going to have to go get unloaded. But listen to this shit. So Volvo done a drag race for me. and they've got this all on video because I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, oh, 308s in the mountains and 247s are so much faster than the 215. They've done some drag racing, and the way the power curve on the engine works now at low RPM, the 215 keeps you in the heart of the torque band a greater percentage of the time. And with the new faster transmission, the 2.15 out accelerates the 308 with a load.
Wow. But you know what?
Who thought that was going to happen?
Really, I'm not surprised. We understand the physics behind all this, and it makes sense. It's that thought process that the only number that matters is the rear end ratio, and that you can tell something from that when you just can't.
So let me tell you something about understanding the physics behind this. I have been saying this for, Alec, how long? 15 years? That if we set this up right,
I've only known you for about 12.
That will be the end result if we set this up right. I had gotten so much pushback from not just Volvo, but from component manufacturers and stuff. No, it's not possible, and here's why. But they only consider one component at a time.
Right.
They either are thinking about, like you said, the rear axle ratio, or they're thinking about the transmission individually, or they're thinking about the engine individually, and they don't look at it holistically. Finally have a team looking at things holistically, and guess what? In about 2 years, we've got a 215 out accelerating a 308, which should have been the case all along.
Exactly.
But, everybody has that individual mindset, and, it's a little crazy. I just saw a message that said Henry's back. I have to duck out, unfortunately, to get unloaded here. But if I can get back in, I will give you guys a shout.
Sounds good.
Have a great weekend, Joel.
Talk to y'all later. Thanks.
All right.
Oh, no.
We've got
he's not having a weekend. He's working.
We've got.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's
enjoy watching everybody else have a great weekend then.
That's right. Let's grab another call. And by the way, Henry, I am going to thwart both of you because I think both of you are doing this behind the scenes. We're taking our last call on the board, and
I'm not.
I just suspended new calls. You guys can recruit all you want. Nobody's going to be able to get through. See, I have the buttons over here.
Well, that's why we have to jump off the call to work on recruiting.
I know. I finally figured out that's what's going on. I thought we had a revolving door in the studio today. People are coming and going whenever they feel like it. It's chaos. Can't work like this. Jesus, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
I heard you guys talking about the sliding fifth kingpin.
Yeah.
And then I hear Paul call you, and he was talking about that, and he mentioned something that when you stop and the trailer was moving forward, and you take off, and then the trailer stays back, whatever.
Yeah.
My question is not about the kingpin, the sliding kingpin. Is about. I always wonder, or I don't really know how much lack is normal on a trailer on a fifth wheel and kingpin. I mean, like when I stop and then the trailer continues, the weight pushes it, and I can feel it, boom. And then when I take off, the trailer stays behind, and I can feel it pulling. Is that normal, or that's not necessarily normal?
If it's the way you're describing it, it's not normal. No, you should have somebody look at your fifth wheel.
Okay. And to be sure, fifth wheels do wear out.
Yeah, they do. And you can rebuild them. They make rebuild kits for the fifth wheel.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, because I always wondered. I mean, I asked a couple guys,
just
drivers, and that's normal.
It's
not.
Okay,
but I mean, now that I hear you guys talk about,
it used to be more normal. just because, machining and the parts weren't as tight. But over time, you will notice, if you drive the same truck long enough, you'll notice that gets worse over time because the parts are wearing out. Now, there's no real safety issue there. I've seen some horrible fifth wheels with this, but they default to staying locked. Even if you've got all that slack and it's bouncing back and forth, the default is it's going to stay locked. Your trailer's not coming off. But it's annoying, if nothing else, and you shouldn't be able to feel that slack. If you can feel it, there's probably something you can do to fix it.
Yeah, a lot of kingpins or the jaws can be adjusted, but
right.
in some cases, I remember I pulled way back that kingpin was so egg-shaped and worn out that.
Well,
sometimes that could be the case.
This truck and trailer, this truck, I think it's a 21. But that doesn't mean anything. But the trailer, it's fairly new. I picked it up.
Well, hold on.
Like 2 months old.
The fact that it's a 21 does mean something. I would think there is no way you could have enough wear on a 21 to start feeling it. That would sound more like adjustment.
No.
So
okay.
I don't even think you're going to need to replace it. Now, if you would have said this is an 03 truck, well, we probably need to rebuild the fifth wheel and make sure it's adjusted right. But if it's a 20 or a 21, I doubt that there's any wear on the fifth wheel parts themselves. It's just out of adjustment.
Most likely.
Okay. So,
yeah,
I'm going to have the shop take a look at it. But okay, because I was always wondering because before I was doing this a flatbed job, I was pulling a reefer, and I felt the same thing on them trucks. So I thought that's when I first started driving. So I thought it was normal.
Now
I never asked nobody. Then I asked a guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's normal." I'm like, "Okay," so I just went with it. But I was always wondering.
So we should probably. There's a difference in words here. We use the wrong word when we say something like this is normal. It's like saying obesity and type 2 diabetes is now normal. No, it's not. It's common. It's common. That is an absolute true statement. Yeah. But it's common, but it's not normal. Okay. Yeah, if you've got drivers who are running around on not well-maintained equipment, for them this may be common. They may be, the last 3 trucks I drove was like this. But it's not normal.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not right.
Now I know.
It's not right. Yeah, that's.
Now I know. So now I'm gonna have him
fix it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was all because that was my question. I was like wondering what's going on, if this is normal or how much is normal, or how much slack is supposed to be there.
In today's,
you're saying that I shouldn't be like you can't.
In today's truck, you should not know that you have a trailer. I mean, it should feel like a straight truck. There should be no movement between that kingpin and that fifth wheel. You should not be able to feel it at all.
Yeah, it gets worse when I'm heavy, so obviously.
And it would, right.
That's when. Yes. So. Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you.
Hey. One thing that it is telling you that you have enough grease on your fifth wheel, so congratulations.
There you go.
No, I keep the grease most of the time because for some reason this fifth wheel dries out quick. So
hey, we're famous for giving
and it will because it's moving.
We're famous for giving answers on this show, but we don't always guarantee they're right. I have another answer for you. First, get a big putty knife, scrape off all the grease you can find anywhere, then get a pressure washer and get in there and pressure wash all the grease you can, and you won't feel this quite so much then.
Yeah, correct. the fifth wheel
it'll be so.
To the trailer.
That's exactly right.
It'll infuse to the trailer.
That's it.
I just have to drive straight. I won't be able to turn.
That's right, and you can't drop your trailer either.
All right.
Yeah. Have a great day.
All right, guys.
All right. All right. Final words of wisdom. Anybody got anything today?
Well, final words and words of wisdom are not necessarily the same.
Okay, so you can give us final words, you can give us words of wisdom, or if you're really sharp, you can give us both.
Henry, you want to go first?
Well, you go first. I've been part-time today.
Maybe I should go first.
I guess the future holds possibilities. I guess it just depends. Just kind of depends on how you look at things and your approach to life in general. So nothing is certain. Nothing is the same. Things rapidly change, and so how you accept or embrace that change to adapt to the evolving reality is what's going to separate the men from the boys.
Perfect. And you gave me a great segue to build on that, because of what you just said, that life is complicated. We talked about all the complexity we're going to be facing. Things change all the time. You really can't afford to miss a minute of this show. You got to tune in every day.
That's absolutely true.
Henry, what do you got?
You know, when my closing thoughts when I think about this with the autonomous trucks and that we were talking earlier before I had to drop off, you know, you don't know the driver's role in all this. Maybe these technologies will lead to where you're driving more than one truck at a time.
Oh, no, I said that yesterday.
Keep your mind open.
Yeah,
But what I'm at is keep your mind open. There was a lot of people with horses and wagons that never thought any of this motorized transport would ever work.
Yeah, the original Teamsters.
Well, you remember what Mrs. Ford said to Mr. Ford?
Oh boy!
You think this horseless carriage is going to work?
Well, I also know that Mrs. Ford drove an electric car and not a Ford.
Well, I think we're talking about two different Mrs. Fords. I get you.
Henry Ford Sr.'s wife did not drive a Ford. She drove an electric car.
Imagine that. I bet it had a range of like 22 miles.
No, as I remember, it was like 200. And the funny thing is, then Ford bought it, and him and Edison were actually going to create an electric car. So, and then they abandoned it because they had the wrong battery technology at that time.
Henry, come on! Like, we got to tell the real story. The CIA threatened their lives, and they were being paid by big oil to do it.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
What was funny, he had some nickel battery or whatever that would last like lifetimes, and the engineers could never get it to have the right range, and the engineers irritated Henry, but they came there the one day and they had put lead acid batteries in it and it performed better, but
well,
they shut it down.
Somebody just needed to combine that electric vehicle with that 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor, and we would have been fine.
Yeah. But yeah, the history on that's pretty interesting. Well, leaving on that note, what I find interesting from studying the electric vehicles, the early electric vehicles, which were more successful than the early internal combustion engines, what's interesting, what was the death knell to the electric vehicle was the invention of the electric starter that made it convenient for anybody to start an internal combustion engine without it kicking back and breaking their arm.
Interesting point.
That was the transition that put the nail in the electric vehicle's coffin, was the electric starter to start an internal combustion engine.
All right. I do have one more topic that I'm going to throw out before we leave, and I'm just kind of warning people what might be coming next Wednesday. So, Alec, you've mentioned this kind of idea a couple times during this call of, and Joel just kind of talked a lot about this idea of keeping an open mind. Henry, you just said it too. We are at a time where things are going to change. I mean, I really think we're right on the edge of AI and autonomous and electric, and a lot of things are going to change, and you absolutely have to keep an open mind. Now, there is a topic that I have spent so much time reading about, now this is not trucking. I'm going to switch to health just to kind of tell people what might be coming up on Wednesday. I've spent a lot of time on this topic, a lot. I'm completely convinced I really have a really good handle on what this whole issue is about. And in many ways, I might even make the arrogant statement, I know more about this than doctors do. And what I'm talking about is type 2 diabetes. The way we treat it is horrendous. All the cost, the damage we're doing because of it, it's awful. I thought I had a very, very good understanding of this. And I heard an interview yesterday with Dave Asprey from Bulletproof, and what he said totally blew my mind. Had it been anybody else or somebody that I wasn't aware of, and if they didn't have the knowledge that I know Dave has, I would have just blown it off as another whack job and wouldn't have even given it a second thought. But since it came from Dave Asprey, it got my attention because, one, he's just a brilliant guy. His parents were both rocket scientists. And he's done a lot of incredible things in his life, and I trust his judgment, his knowledge, and he does incredible amounts of research, and he can really understand these complicated topics. And when he said this, I'm still kind of trying to get my head around it. And here's his claim, and I've got a lot of reading to do prior to Wednesday if I can even put something together on this at all. Dave Asprey is now making the claim that type 2 diabetes is not a problem of too much sugar in our diet. And when I heard that, I thought, come on, Dave, what's the catch here? There's no catch. His claim is now that we don't become insulin resistant because we eat too much sugar and we become resistant to the effects of insulin, which is what we believe is type 2 diabetes. It is insulin resistant. Our belief is you've put so much sugar into your body your whole life that your body doesn't respond to the insulin properly anymore. That's the first problem. The second problem is the longer this goes on, your pancreas starts to wear out and just won't produce as much insulin. All of those things make total sense. That is our current understanding of what diabetes is. Dave Asprey is now turning that totally on its head. He is claiming that the only reason our cells won't accept the sugar, and if the cell would accept the sugar, then we wouldn't have high blood sugar. And when it's in our blood, that's where it does all the damage. If our cells would accept it, they would just use it as energy and we'd be fine. We believe that they won't accept it because there's just too much, and they're now insulin resistant. Dave Asprey is now making the claim that it's not sugar, it's bad fats. And when I hear that, I think, how does that make any sense? Fat has nothing to do with our insulin response. It is the only macro that really doesn't create an insulin response. But here's the thing, and when it was finally explained, it could be possible. I'm not saying it is, but at least his explanation makes sense. All of our cells are made from fat. The surface of the cells are fat and cholesterol, every cell in our body. And he is saying that the industrial seed oils, the bad fats, are so bad for us that our body can no longer make the proper cell structure because the fat is so damaged. And if it can't build the proper cell structure, that's why the cell won't accept sugar. That is a radical departure from everything we know.
And that makes a lot of sense. Because basically you're putting can I say this on the radio? You're putting a condom on every cell.
Yes.
So that it can't do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually does make sense. I'm not saying
you're sure to get kicked off of YouTube.
I know. I'm not saying it is what's happening, but I'm very intrigued, and I'm intrigued enough to go back and try to figure out. I may even reach out to him and see if I could talk to him about it. Now, here's his other claim. Here's the other thing that shocked me. I've been following Dave for a lot of years. In the interview, I haven't seen him in a while. It's been several years since I've seen him. In the interview, I was shocked at the way he looks. You can tell he's older, but not in a bad way, and he is really, really lean. Now, when you know his history, he was one of the early Silicon Valley millionaires, made a bunch of money in tech. Like I said, his parents are both rocket scientists. But by the time he was in his 30s, he was like 400 and some pounds, horribly sick, almost not functioning. Yeah, he was in really bad shape. And how Bulletproof got started was he took all of his money and he said, I'm going to travel around the world and I'm going to figure out how to be healthy. Something has gone horribly wrong, and I'm going to go learn this. And he has done a lot, but he lost a lot of weight. He got a lot healthier, but just in the last couple of years, he has gotten much, much leaner. You can see it. He really looks good. But his claim is he is currently eating 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates a day from mostly rice, white rice only, fruit, and honey. 300 to 400 grams of carbs is outrageous compared to what we've been doing and telling people. I mean, carnivore now is basically zero carbohydrates. And we tell people you don't need any carbohydrates to live. You don't. Right. But I mean, if I could eat all the carbohydrates I wanted and still be healthy, now, not garbage like processed foods and wheat, flour, and that kind of stuff, but like he's doing, white rice, fruit, honey, some potatoes, he says. And he claims his body fat is 6.5%. And I believe him when you look at him, he looks that lean. This would be such a radical departure. It would take the holistic, functional health system that has just kind of really been created in the last 10 years and turn it completely upside down.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So tune in Wednesday. I might be talking about it. It depends on how much more I can learn and figure out. Because right now, all I know is what I just told you, and it makes enough logical sense that I think it has to be explored.
I agree.
Crazy stuff. All right. We will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.